as we were discussing in our episodes today, the individuals who have that capacity to forgive, to be around all, and to know that those who are afraid of shame have a journey of their own to do. Those of us here, we love to be able and speak our truths with intimacy. So that means with a ventral vagal social engagement system online. And so instead of doing what those who navigate shame, blame, fault, revenge do, so we don't do the dysregulated or modulated embodied self expression. We're restorative, embodied, self aware, accountable, and regulating people. Okay, so the 5D mystic who is mindfully living their life and spiritually living. That's why we will hope that people who are afraid of shame, because they're afraid of their own emotional plane because of that insecure attachment business that we talked about. So they don't turn within and go with the will to heal to a therapist and wait until they're done with their journey. And once they're ready to forgive, join the land of the speaking. No, we all have, again, different journeys. So here we do self-help and mindful living and spirituality for those of you who are here. So we hope that those who have still trauma that they're projecting and they just keep on blaming, Lucifer and all that other stuff, we hope that they find the will to heal through spirituality or mindfully living. And so the ones who instead are shouting, they're silencing, they insult, all of them. Anyone who's insulting anyone is using a low mental and emotional intelligence and reactivity modality. It's called dysregulation, modulation, and it's adaptive child part. So it's a, at best, 16-year-old version of you with an 8-year-old, 0 to 8, and your unconscious is playing out. So there's rejection, abandonment, injustice, betrayal, humiliation, shame wounds. So we're not afraid of shame, and when people want to try and use any of those tones with us and any of those mannerisms, whatever facade they're bringing, because it's going to be a facade, when I have a person who is trying to lead me down their unbridled self-expression path and that I need to give them a thumbs up or thumbs down, I have an insecure human being who will in fact potentially talk about devils, evils, demons, and pick sides. They'll have sides, and so they want people to pick their sides. They're not in a conversation to expand, okay? So when we have that, we don't do what low emotional and mental intelligent people do, because we are not low on the mental emotional, and we're also not low self-esteem. We're not indirect communicators. We're not passive aggressive. We're not insecure. So we don't do, I'm going to block you, unfriend you, I'm going to insult you. It doesn't matter what political, religious views you have, what lifestyle. You can be monoamory, polyamory, you can be a mystic, not a mystic, you're a scientist, not a scientist, whatever it is, it won't make a difference to me as a person who is restorative, embodied, self-aware, accountable, regulating, as I know how to be equanimous. I'm not a facade of Maria. That's where self-worth comes into the mix. I am Maria, and that's why I can speak with intimacy about mysticism. That's why I can speak with freedom and have fun, and that's why I can feel like this inside. And when you're doing whatever you're doing, I'm going to be happy as long as you're not a physical threat to me. And I know how to have a funny story and more with facades, because that's where I learned already as a teenager that I said, hey, God, I don't see this. I see insecurity, that's for sure. I see the facade, God. Yeah. I also see that they play this thing where they call superheroes and supervillains, and I am no, I'm not a superhero. I'm a villain. I'm not a villain, but hey, go figure. Nobody's all inherently good or evil. Did anybody not learn how to just be a person? So as a teenager, again, this is where I'm going back to story. And so when you have that and you see this, you don't think in any way, shape, or form of this. You just think of this person who's avoiding their own self. So I get to deal with what is going to be their facade. So I get to deal with the Cusco, which would be the part of their self, the 16-year-old, who is storing their rejection, abandonment, injustice, betrayal, humiliation, shame. Their wound, not mine. Their trauma is projecting a story. They aren't completing any of it. They haven't become securely attached and have left, right. No, they're living their karma. They're living their 0 to 8, their attachment system on a wheel, because you get that social system online by the adolescent year, when your brain becomes an adolescent. I'm attachment trauma informed if you're new and you don't know this. So when someone tells me I find it hard to believe, and they ignore the first 3 years of their life, so they ignore the information on your implicit memory, yes, you leave it alone. You got a facade in front of you, and you leave them to their own life so that they can continue to do what is this, while they also do superheroes, supervillains, and while they also continue with this. And again, it doesn't matter really whether they complete or not. They're living out whatever the narrative that their household, this is the sad stuff. This is why Patrick Teahan is important, the childhood trauma therapist. He's healed, and I always say healing, and he's important because he'll share with you what childhood trauma survivors do. They don't see themselves and they don't want to be seen, and then they continue to go and be in low self-esteem, indirect communication relationships with people who are passive aggressive, themselves included, so on and so forth. So with that being said, we hope that those who have shame and are afraid of shame because they're afraid of their self and picking themselves up and going to heal, we hope they get through spirituality or somehow mindfully to healing that trauma that instead they're projecting on humanity and elsewhere, and on those of us who are mystics. So what's the funny story that I'm going to share? Well, let's see. I want to just give you the gist of how being myself with self-worth mindfully has been a consistent growth journey, because I got lucky with a mom who taught me how to have fun, and how it's okay to be different. I have a twin too, though, okay? So that's why that book, Determined by Robert Sapolsky, is important. And then we know my story with Jesus and God and my catechism and my first light body. And so with mysticism, though, I basically knew that I'd be not welcomed by all of those of the Holy Spirit, but I know that the ones who are not facades do welcome. The ones who are facades, they have a lot of stories, and I make fun of them here, and we make fun of them together. And that's because they are on the low emotional and mental intelligence scale. They're not going to be expanding. They lost their essence. They don't have the essential spark. They don't have the heart-to-heart wanting to build true, genuine connections. And they don't have the novelty or creative expression. But what above all they don't have is the integrated brain. So they don't have integration of the brain. And they don't have the capacity to learn how to be able and engage in a restorative, embodied, self-aware, accountable, and regulating life when they are meeting differences. So their body is going to consistently lead in a way that is not expanding from within, and in the absence of what is a heart that is open. So again, we hope that they can find somewhere in their hearts the capacity to bring themselves to go to therapy. If not, it's okay, because they have their groups. And so we get to know about how the laws work, right? So with stories, the one that I use a lot is one of my friends, where his childhood wounds, and so his unwelcomed parts, how I'm going to give you the gist of it, were never welcomed. And he's not the only one from my oversoul that has the facade type lifestyle. Okay, so facade type lifestyle is a person who's going to lead like any of those cliche sentences from movies, like Hangover, Mean Girls, the Zen Master with the laundry bit. And what gives it away when you're around a person who is not a differentiated self, so they don't unconditionally love, do not, they don't have flaws and differences in a way that it's okay, so with integrity for themselves, okay? So they want society to give them the green light. And so they're basically living life with that. And that's why they're afraid of shame, as the title and titles I'm trying to play with words right now. But shame is at the core of any person who is not yet their securely attached 1-year-old, so you can stand on your own feet even when your herd members say, you know what? I don't like you, Maria. Everything you do and think, I think it's all wrong. No, you know what? I know it's wrong. And guess what? I think you're an evil mystic. I'm going to insult and just use all the insult. That's not even a word for me. I mean, I use it because it exists, but You asked me if somebody calls me an evil anything. I was a teenager when I was able to understand that this can happen. So I'll use this story. Um, there's a couple of people that were my friends, acquaintances as a teenager, and they were saying, they kept repeating this sentence. Now, I don't understand jokes because I'm a very literate person, literal, and I have people explain them to me. So they sometimes will get frustrated, and so I'll try and notice if they're patient in that moment or not. And if they are, then I'll have them explain it to me. If they're not, I'll try and leave it alone. I'll come back when they're ready. But these two people, they had this recurring joke that they would tell me. I thought it was something nice. And then one of my close friends, they said, "This is what this means." And I said, "So it means that they think that I could harm them, that I don't want their well-being." Is the way it was worded was that who is short is going to be keen on trying to, get under your skin and do something in this way of being mean to you. And I said, "What are they, stupid?" And they don't trust me. Why are they my friends? That doesn't make any sense. And my friend, whoever it was, "It's a joke, Maria." I said, "No, it's not a joke. Are they stupid? I think they're stupid. They must be stupid." And I was like, "I'm not going to hang out with these people. It's ridiculous." So when you are a person who is authentic, you don't want facades. To this day, a facade, my friend, the one that I didn't talk to for 5 years, so I told you the story yesterday, so I'll keep the gist of it. But when he repeated to me what his idea is of why I did not speak to him for 5 whole years, he repeated it incorrectly. This is what a facade, a person who doesn't have ears to hear you because they're not a differentiated self when you're with them. So they're not doing what Dr. Daniel Siegel would say, me and then you, differentiation plus linkage is how he describes it. So two independent human beings. Okay, so when you have two independent human beings, they're not insecure. No, they're going to be doing this. One, they're going to do this all the time. And that's heart to heart and have this. So no, silent treatment, none of that inconsistency stuff that you see out there. So whenever you meet any human being, man, woman, they be, that doesn't know how to answer a question without getting defensive. Let me let you in on a fun fact. Leave it alone. The minute a person gets defensive, they are emotionally low on the intelligence scale. They don't know how to harness their own inner world and have what is called a basic interaction. Lovely Terry Real will explain it to you. Okay, so you don't have to. I'm gonna share with you as if you're a friend, and this is where I tell people, don't put up with it. It's unnecessary. They're not going to notice their mannerisms unless they want to emotionally, mentally, and physically mature themselves to become differentiated selves. My friend's the perfect example. I know his facade because I have met him and we've been friends for years. But when he repeated this thing the way he did, I'll never forget because I had really spelled it out to him. Those 2 days where him and I sat down, because, you all don't know the story, but I was beyond still upset at my friend. And I had told God, I said, "I know hate is a strong word and anger is strong. I'm going to put it aside. I don't want to process this right now. My friend disappointed me. I'm pissed as fuck. I don't give a shit about all," and there was just all of this chit chatting. Said, "When I'm ready, I'll take it. I will leave it here in this little box and I'll visit it whenever I want. Not in any rush to get through this." And so that's how I handled. So when he came back 2 days, because the only reason I said yes is because I know my friend was in the shithole and that he didn't have any friends because he didn't build friendships because he's this. My friend is still this. That's why he has me and another person. And that's what happens when you don't open yourself up to the world because of having disowned parts. Sounds really ridiculous when I'm explaining it, but this is where it's not ridiculous to the people who don't head their way down to therapy to get their insecure attachment and their child parts healed. So my friend's living life like anybody else is. In the meantime, as I'm trying to describe to you all, since it's just as much as if I talk to you about my twin flames, my soulmates, it doesn't matter. I can talk to you about any of these people in my oversoul. It's still going to be the same thing when I meet a facade. So I thank my friend because he's the reason why I know how to handle facades. because I won't do anything with the facades. And the therapists have confirmed that any person who's living their child part like it's on go isn't going to hear you. Stephen Porges. Oh, that's what I was saying. Don't waste your time. If somebody, you ask them a question and they begin getting pissing their pants, they already don't know how to do emotions. They don't know how to talk. And so you create a friendship. Just know you're creating a friendship with somebody who's not their whole self is what I'm trying to get to. So they're not going to be fun. They're going to be a humbug, which is going to be boring to a person who knows how to do this, which is why I love the people that I like to hang around. They're all this, and they're not this. These I will have because, just like they assume, so my friend assumes to know everything about me. That's why when he repeated the story and he didn't figure it out, I didn't bother telling him anything because by that point I had another incident where I noticed that he again had done the facade bit. That time I got angry again and I said, "Don't you remember what we talked about? I told you just be yourself. What is this shit?" And it was again important because he had been allowing me to talk about something that is very important to me, but he doesn't have any belief in it. No belief, no interest. And so it's two things he was doing. One wasn't telling me how he thinks and feels, so saying, "Hey, let's talk about other stuff." Two, it's something important and you don't even believe in it, which means that I'm sharing something super, super important in my life and you are minimizing it and not wanting to hear it. So it's double the, okay, no, now that's something we're not talking. And since then, that's it. Because that's what happens. You recalibrate once you understand that people don't know how to speak up because my friend doesn't know how to speak up about what his needs, you see, insecure attachment. I don't know how to speak up, to be seen, to be soothed, to be able to enjoy. I'll put myself to the side and allow another person to dominate. I don't want to dominate. That's not a friendship. That's not a that's pretending. It's a waste of our time. You are not enjoying this. I thought I was, but that's because I thought I had somebody who knew how to speak who they are. And because my friend is pretty much a straight shooter, that's why he's the only friend I needed to understand that if you have a person who doesn't, well, really what it is that you'll know if people are authentic in time. That's the best way I can put it. So you just need to allow a person to unfold, but if they have any way of being, let's see, how other stories, no, in time you'll uncover. So with my friend in particular, I just learned the energetic imprint of a clown because there's an energetic imprint for a mystic. For me, I don't think it's mystic necessarily related. It's more about our embodied brain because when I learned from Dr. Daniel Siegel, he has a way he'll describe like what a meshing feels like, which is why I know when it was happening now because I can remember the feelings like, okay, so now I have a word. He has explained what re-traumatizing feels like, and I know that one too is yucky when somebody is using something I'm talking to and their body's getting off on it. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I know what that is. So I'm like, I need to remember that one. And all he had to share is differentiate, which means move more into your prefrontal, which I understand his words, so I know how to put into practice. Then he also taught me how I'm a differentiated self, so the thoughts and feelings are my own, because as a 3-year-old, I let my mom know she couldn't spank me, so you'll know if you're a differentiated self by the time I'm done with this share and these shares. And it means you're not emotionally like, oh my God, I'm not accepted by my family. They don't love me. So if you still feel like that, I'm sorry. Go and work on it, okay? Like the reality is if you can't grow up, I told my teenage friends this. I told people who would whine about their parents about this. And then when their parents passed away, they became a romance novel of tragedy. And I remember every single time they had shit and crap to tell me about their fathers, their mothers. And I said, one day they're going to die, right? You're talking shit about them, and now you regret that they're dead. I don't understand. You're not making sense to me, a person who's consistent. You see, though? So to me, my brain thinks you could have avoided saying things you didn't really mean, and now that they're not here, you don't have a chance to take it back. Why wouldn't you have become aware of it? Okay, so mindfully being aware, I've consistently been this word, mindfully aware, without even knowing it. So again, not a competition, sharing with you examples And I repeat those because people who have this, they start to get irritated, and then they start to not notice that they're having shit come up and like, I don't like this person. You don't have to like me. I'm just saying, if you know how to do your own inner world, then you're going to notice that. Mindfully aware people will notice when they're upset. So I don't like to be around like my friend. I like to be around him, but when I figured out his facade, I was, again, beyond furious. And then when I heard him repeat the story that I was so passionately telling him, I was like, okay, wow. So this is what it means to be unseen. And then obviously you're also unsoothed because you're not welcomed from the heart. So my friend thinks he knows me. He doesn't. And even if I try repeating, he thinks that I'm just being stubborn Maria. This is the part of where when people don't accept that you have a way to describe what you are and who you are. So anyone who will tell me about that, but then will be able to not notice when they're doing it, that's the other cue. So if someone corrects me in my words, I now know, not only as a person who wants to resonate with you, but from attachment and trauma information people, that when you're correcting me, it's because the way that I'm expressing it doesn't match how you're feeling it. So as a mindfully aware, accountable, and regulating person who's a grown-up, who doesn't need this, I'm not looking for you to be non-differentiated. I will accept that you have a subjective reality way, whatever words you want to use your words, which is why I won't correct you. Now, if you're a person I love and I notice you're using a word that I know that out there you're going to get crapped on, I'm going to say, hey, FYI, I think this is one of those words that's I don't know what word they're going to substitute it with. I don't know all the words, but just FYI, if you use it, you might have some people get in your face about it. So that's how we've ended up in having to work with each other. The self-empowered ones, we try to make sure to let each other know, okay, I love you just the way you are. Hey, FYI, in case somebody calls me a piece of shit, just know it's probably because I said something the wrong way and I didn't get it right. You know, what can I tell you? So anyways, my friend, let's go back to him. And so again, he didn't welcome his unlovable parts because he never went to therapy and he doesn't think of it. And the part about when people don't think of it, I understand as well. But what I don't understand is when you move on in life, right? So year after year. So my friend put him to the side because he's happy. He found solace. He wakes up. He's always laughing. So our relationship is calibrated to where I just know that he's never going to get over the political correctness shit. I just know that he's another one of those people who doesn't tell me how he thinks, but I'll tell him how I think. And there you go. I have other people who they've understood, and so they will tell me how they think. And then there's others who, again, just like my friend, they have a facade. So the people who have facades, they continue to maintain their insecurities and they will present them to you in many different ways. Okay, so some are the victim, some are going to do the little gossiping, others are going to have a label for themselves alongside this, and then they will have stories like this, and they're going to use the words. Okay, so but the other story, I was going to share one more, but it wasn't them. I forgot it. So recalibration for me is easy and straightforward. Being around all types of people. Obviously, the facades are the least of fun, but then again, they eventually lead themselves to find the perfect match for them, and there you go. And then as you keep moving forward, you're just going to have the playing it by ear is what I'm trying to get my memory back for what I was going to tell you all, but I don't have it. Anyways, facades. We can welcome them, and the therapists know all about them, but they also know that those same facades don't want to be intimate with themselves, so they don't speak their truth, even in their own heads. So my friend, again, they found solace. The way they went about it is in a very specific way. I walked the path with them, and I remember the decisions that they made, and one of the ways they expressed this thing was, I don't want to be any more different than I already am. And so anytime a person is feeling vulnerable and helpless to be their own unique self, they sound like a teenager to me, but then they sound like a hypocrite because I'm thinking, I thought everybody wanted to be their unique self. So you're not taking and being your unique self. You're just using your mouth. And that's why when I found out that the fight response, a 16-year-old is the lead, I was like, yeah, they're all teenagers. Anyone who is with that battle type mouth and that has tragedy all over the place. That's why the Zen master with his laundry, he didn't finish. He didn't move into the capacity to speak his own truth with intimacy, to expand consistently yet, because he didn't move into this with the emotional plane. He didn't move into complete this with knowing that emotions are part of it and that really he's a Zen master. So at the very bare minimum, I can understand where a person is only doing the mindful part. But if you're in the spirituality of any of those different belief systems, however words you use, for me, it's Jesus and God. That's why I don't have a question. I'm not going to stub my toe and turn my back on God because I stubbed my toe. I have emotions, you see? This is why. So the Zen master wants to talk to me about being a Zen master. I'm thinking with all the information I learned, you're using laundry. That word you chose to use represents how you feel sadness. I know sadness because I'm a human. It means you don't know mindful living, Zen master. You're not yet in the expertise of your own tradition, whatever it is. Because I heard about tradition of the yogis with Sadhguru. And I'll share it with you all because you might be new and you don't listen to the audio podcast. Sadhguru, he has this one, he's talking in a crowd with a crowd of people, and he's talking about this recent finding in quantum physics or physics. I had heard about it because I watched a bunch of different documentaries on dark matter, dark energy, the universe. So he's explaining this potential theory where everything is going to return to darkness. And I had already heard about it a little bit. So I'm like, okay, and how expert yogis, they will learn that everything returns to darkness, that the light is the not expert yogis that get to hear about light and, all that. And as he's talking, a lady in the crowd, she goes in and says, please, Sadhguru, stop. And the tone, if you learn from Stephen Porges, he'll tell you why tone is what gives it away if you're in your ventral vagal or not. So I know tone. Like I had an episode, I decided to scratch it because I didn't like my tone in it. I said, okay, I want to do something that expresses the right sound, the sound that I'm looking to express with the content. So I can tell by the tone, this lady is just completely terrified in a way of human secondary consciousness, which is why the Zen master, again, I tease him, but I tease him because he has the title Zen master. I'm thinking, how are you using a title? But then I remember the path to enlightenment and connection to source involves pain and loss. So, okay, he's on that path. I got the path of bliss and delight because I have none of that. The pain and loss is not what I will use as words to describe to you where I got. Do I have emotions? Yes. Did I have depth? Yes. There's not pain. You know what I think of when I think of pain? You know what I think of when I think of strength? I think I can't lift anything up. If I get a fucking bullshit wall on my foot, then I'm going to be in pain, not emotions. Emotions aren't painful. And the reason is prefrontal cortex. And that's the also conscious choice of how to use my words when the emotions come up. And that's why the Zen master doesn't help to create resiliency, because laundry's up. Okay, that's the reason for where a choice of you using mindfulness practices to what depth and what level depends on how far you want to go with the expansion of consciousness of you. But long story short, Sadhguru, he's just talking about a concept, and she's, in the presence of a guru. So he says something about light, and like, so you're afraid of darkness, and obviously he's a guru. I understand that's he's teaching, and it's not even teaching, he's dispelling and trying to help be that light to move you beyond that which is the immediacy of what you're perceiving. It's also why, though, as a rational person, I can understand why someone's like, it's a bunch of bullshit. And that's why I get to bring to you the human element, so I can try to make it more tangible, because I find that the mental and emotional planes are fabulous with the physical plane, and being able to bring sciences and spirituality together makes it really fun. So integration of the brain. And that's why Sadhguru could really benefit from psychoeducation, but he chose to commit to what he's doing. So I get to be a bit of hopefully adding to tidbits in time. But again, the lady was just afraid of what a person is going to be afraid of and really upset about if they are mindfully aware that they're mortal. Can you handle? Don't try it though, but that's the part I can, because I would wake up from sleeping and I would be very upset. And then I read Marcus Aurelius, who said, Maria, why worry about something you can't do anything about? And I said, you know what? You're right, Marcus. I don't want to die, and I still don't like the idea of it. But from that moment forth, I didn't worry about it anymore. That's how divine feminine works. We learn every step of the way, every breath you take, every step. No, you won't be there. That we also learned the bullshit statements of I'll always be there. I remember when I started telling those lovely men I would date after my initial relationships, don't say you're always going to be there, because you're not. Don't lie. And one of them, he would give me flowers every day. And I said, why don't you stop now? Because that way we can avoid you disengaging from giving me flowers. I'm going to be disappointed when you don't give them to me anymore. No, I won't stop. Yes, you will. No, I won't. Yes, you will. No. Okay, fine. If you say so. Of course they stopped. I didn't make sure to remind them of it, and I wasn't disappointed. But the point is, when you're a consistent, contingent communicator, and that's because that's what a divine feminine will, by the way, be, because you have your own inner child, you're going to know when you meet facades, which is why I thank my friend, because it's thanks to him that I learned how to recognize what buffoons are. And then it's thanks to him that I also recognize that buffoons are not this. Nope, they're not that. They're just people who don't want to create a relationship with their own self fully, and so they mask it with their buffoonery. And then they also don't want to create relationships in a lot of other ways, and so they then do also this. And it's not a good or bad thing, but they like to have fun with that business of let's go out and get distracted. And that's why we do need a variety. My friend and I, when we would go out together, he was the perfect blend, because people who would go out, they tended to want to go and get distracted. I don't do distractions. I'm not a facade. I do depth. And so my friend would be the one who would balance out the scale. Now that I'm all by myself, I have learned how to try to figure out if people are facades or not, to the best of my ability. And I have done okay. Then if sometimes I don't, it's okay, because I'm not trying to do anything except for be Maria. But if you don't know how to be you and tell me what you want to talk about or not, and how much to talk about, I can't read your mind. I don't want to. So yes, there is telepathy for mystics, but it's on a whole different level. And actually, it only happens with people. And if we wanted to access more of it, we'd have to really focus and hone in on it. So I've had experiences of that. And yes, with my twin flames, and then with some other people from my oversoul. And I remember saying, wow, this is interesting. I don't want any more of it, though. I'm going to ensure to move them all out of my space so I can have it all for myself. And that's why there's no energy vampires, dark auras. It's a good time for the 5D mystic in the Enlightenment Soul Age group here. So be back with more. In the meantime, let's learn how to be around each other. And when we meet facades, just leave it alone. If they want to go to therapy, they will. We don't need to keep blaming Lucifer. If they don't want to go, they'll just gossip about us mystics and anyone who's different than they are. It's okay. They're going to eventually just allow themselves to keep doing superheroes, supervillains. They're going to think that they're taking the lead of something. They're free. We're free. And on the other hand, we do this lovely co-creation like the little crows. I'm just using cards now to have fun. So thanks for stopping by. Like, share, and subscribe. And if you do know of others who are enjoying mindful self-help, mystic chit-chat, send them over, and spirituality. And we'll be back with more. Have a good one.